the morning my billionaire husband asked for a divorce. I discovered I had already died. Not emotionally, not financially, legally. A live stream titled FINLFAREWL To Lena Hart had over 3 million viewers. The woman in the coffin had my name, my face, my fingerprints, my DNA. The death certificate was authentic. The funeral home confirmed it. The government database confirmed it. Even my husband confirmed it. I stared at the screen, then at Ethan Blackwood, the man who had paid me $5 million to become his fake wife. His face had gone completely white. And that's when I knew something was horribly wrong. Because Ethan Blackwood wasn't afraid of anything. 3 months earlier, my biggest problem was rent. Actually, that's a lie. My biggest problem was my boyfriend. Rent came second. I spent 4 years helping him build a tech startup. I designed logos, handled clients, worked weekends, skipped vacations, shared instant noodles, supported every stupid dream he ever had. Then the company got investors, and suddenly, I became unnecessary. Afternoon, he invited me to a rooftop restaurant. I thought he was proposing. Instead, he introduced me to his new fiancée, a venture capitalist's daughter. Blonde, perfect, rich, the kind of woman who had never worried about rent in her life. My boyfriend smiled awkwardly. Lena, let's be adults. I laughed, not because it was funny, because my brain refused to process reality. His fiancée slid a check across the table. $50,000. Compensation. Like I was a fired employee. I looked at the check, then at them, then picked up the expensive wine bottle. For one glorious second, both of them looked hopeful. Like maybe I was accepting defeat. Instead, I poured the entire bottle over his head. The restaurant exploded into chaos. His fiancée screamed. The investors stared. My ex looked like a very expensive wet rat. I walked out smiling. Best moment of the year, at least until the black SUV appeared. The vehicle followed me for 3 blocks, then stopped beside me. The rear window lowered. A deep voice spoke. Miss Hart. I kept walking. The voice continued. I can solve your financial problems. I stopped. Because I'm not stupid. A man stepped out. Tall, perfect suit, perfect posture, perfect watch. The kind of rich person who looked expensive from a distance. He handed me a card. Ethan Blackwood, CEO. Blackwood Global, one of the youngest billionaires in the juice country. I looked at the card, then at him, then back. Is this a prank? No. What do you want? His answer arrived instantly. A wife. I laughed. A lot. He didn't. That worried me. 1 hour later, I sat inside a private office overlooking the city. A contract rested between us. Marriage. Public appearances. Confidentiality. $5 million. Divorce at the end. Simple. Clean. Temporary. I looked up. Why me? His jaw tightened. Interesting. Apparently, he hated that question. I need someone with your profile. What profile? No answer. Bad sign. Very bad sign. Still, $5 million is persuasive. I signed. The wedding happened 4 days later. No romance, no family, no honeymoon, just lawyers, documents, photographers. Then suddenly I became Mrs. Lena Blackwood. The media lost its mind. Nobody understood why Ethan married a woman with no connections, no wealth, no influence. Honestly, neither did I. The first month felt weird, but manageable. Ethan was polite, distant, professional. We lived together but barely interacted. It felt more like a corporate merger than a marriage. Strange things started happening. People recognized me. Not occasionally. Constantly. At airports, restaurants, hotels, shopping centers, random strangers would stare. Sometimes they approached. Sometimes they apologized. Sometimes they looked terrified. Elderly woman even burst into tears. She grabbed my hands and whispered, "You came back." Then she walked away before I could ask questions. That bothered me a lot. I mentioned it to Ethan. He immediately changed the subject. That bothered me even more. Photograph. I found it accidentally. His study door was open. A folder sat on the desk. My face stared back from the top page. Curiosity won. Naturally, I opened it and froze. The photograph wasn't recent. It couldn't be. The image was at least 20 years old, yet the woman looked exactly like me. Not similar, not close, exactly. Same eyes, same smile, same face. My pulse accelerated. The file contained more photographs. Dozens, maybe hundreds, different years, different countries, different identities. Same face, always the same face. I closed the folder just as Ethan entered. The moment he saw it open, something changed. Fear. Real fear. I pointed at the photographs. What is this? Silence. I hated silence. What is this? His answer came carefully. A problem. That was not an answer. Not even close. I pushed the folder toward him. Try again. Before he could respond, alarms erupted throughout the penthouse. Every screen activated simultaneously. Security personnel rushed into hallways. Someone shouted over a radio. The atmosphere changed instantly. Danger, real danger. A security officer entered. Sir. What happened? The officer looked pale. We found her. The room froze. Ethan stood immediately. What? We found her. The officer swallowed. After 12 years. My pulse accelerated. Who? Nobody explained. Of course. The officer handed Ethan a tablet. I looked over his shoulder, then froze. The screen displayed a surveillance image. A woman exiting a train station. Dark hair, hazel eyes. My face again. The room became silent. I stared. No. The security officer looked nervous. Ethan looked worse. The woman in the image wasn't just similar, was identical. Like a twin, or a clone, or a reflection. My brain rejected all three possibilities. Then the image zoomed. A name appeared beneath the photograph. Subject 4. The room froze again. I immediately noticed. Everyone knew what that meant. Everyone except me. Pointed at the screen. Subject 4. Nobody answered. Wonderful. Exactly what I expected. Then the woman in the image looked directly toward the camera, as if she knew she was being watched. The surveillance footage paused, enhanced, sharpened. Then something impossible happened. The woman smiled and raised a handwritten sign toward the camera. The sign contained only 3 words. She's not Lena. The room exploded. Security officers started talking at once. Ethan's face lost all color. I stared. What does that mean? Nobody answered. Another alert appeared. A new notification. Emergency priority. The officer opened it and immediately looked sick. I noticed. What now? His voice came out barely above a whisper. The funeral. The room became silent. The officer turned the tablet toward us. A live stream filled the screen. Thousands of viewers. Thousands more joining every second. A black coffin. White flowers. Professional mourners. A giant portrait. My portrait. The name beneath it read, Lena Hart 1999-2026. My blood turned cold. I looked at Ethan. He looked at me. Neither of us spoke. Then, the funeral host stepped onto the stage. A woman in black, elegant, calm, dangerously calm. She smiled at the camera, then said something that instantly shattered every sense of reality. I still possessed. Welcome. The live stream audience continued, growing millions now. The woman folded her hands and looked directly into the camera, as if she could see me. Then she said, Today, we bury the wrong Lena. The live stream chat exploded. Millions of comments. Millions of viewers. Nobody understood what was happening. Neither did I. The woman in black stood beside my coffin. My coffin. That sentence alone should not have existed. Yet there it was. A polished black casket. My portrait. My name. My death certificate. Everything official. The woman smiled calmly. Today we bury the wrong Lena. The room around me fell silent. Even the security officers stopped talking. Ethan stared at the screen. His jaw tightened. I immediately noticed something. He wasn't surprised by the statement. He was afraid of it. That was worse. Much worse. I pointed at the brie. Who is she? Nobody answered. Of course. Then the woman in black continued speaking. The right Lena should have disappeared years ago. My pulse accelerated. What does that mean? No answer. The woman reached into the coffin. Actually reached into my coffin. Then, removed a folder. The livestream camera zoomed in. Every viewer could see it. A thick file. Stamped with a symbol. A silver circle crossed by a black line. The moment Ethan saw it, he stood up. What? The security officer beside him looked pale. No, interesting. Very interesting. Apparently everyone recognized the symbol. Everyone except me. The woman opened the folder. Photographs appeared, dozens of them. Then hundreds. The camera focused, and my stomach dropped. Every photograph showed me different ages, different places, different years. Stared. No. The woman smiled. The audience deserves context. The first photograph appeared on screen. I looked about 6 years old, standing beside a woman. Not my mother. Not anyone I recognized. Yet she looked familiar somehow. The second photograph appeared. Age 10. Different city. Different woman. The third. Age 12. Different school. Different name. The fourth. Age 14. Different passport. Different identity. The room froze. I stared. That was impossible. I remembered my childhood. Didn't I? Suddenly I wasn't sure. The woman in black looked directly at the camera. There were 7 confirmed identities. The room became silent. 7 successful transitions. My pulse hammered. Transitions? What transitions? Nobody explained. Then Ethan suddenly grabbed the remote. The television went dark. The live stream disappeared. I turned toward him immediately. What are you doing? He ignored me. Wrong move. I stepped directly in front of him. What are you doing? Before he could answer, every screen in the penthouse turned back on, automatically, not by remote, not by security, something else. The woman in black smiled, as if she had expected that. That never works, Ethan. The room froze. She knew his name personally. The billionaire looked furious. You shouldn't be here. The woman laughed softly, and yet, here I am. Interesting. Very interesting. These two knew each other. That much was obvious. Then the woman tilted her head. Have you told her? Silence. She smiled wider. I'll take that as a no. I hated being discussed like I wasn't present. Tell me what? Nobody answered. Again. Then the woman pulled another document from the coffin. A birth certificate. My birth certificate. At least that's what I thought. The camera zoomed. The audience saw everything. Millions watching. Millions learning things before I did. Wonderful. Then I noticed something. The name wasn't Lena Hart. The room froze. My pulse accelerated. The document clearly displayed another name. Eleanor Reed. I stared. No. The woman in black nodded. Exactly. Ethan closed his eyes. That reaction terrified me. Because it wasn't confusion. It was confirmation. The woman continued. Lena Hart was. Identity 6. The room became silent. Identity 6. Not a person. An identity, a role, a cover. My stomach dropped. I looked at Ethan. His silence told me enough. Far too much. Then a security officer rushed into the room. Fast. Panicked. Sir. What? The officer handed him a tablet. Ethan looked. Then immediately swore. The room froze. I pointed. What now? The officer answered before Ethan could. Subject 4. The name again. Always Subject 4. I hated Subject 4 already. The officer enlarged the screen. A live security feed appeared. Airport footage. The woman from earlier. The one with my face. The one holding the sign. She wasn't at the airport anymore. She stood outside the Blackwood Tower. My husband's headquarters. Thousands of employees worked inside. The woman looked directly at a security camera. Then, smiled. The exact same smile I saw in the mirror every morning. My skin crawled. Then she held up another sign. The room became silent. The sign read, A.S. Kim, about identity. 1. Ethan's face lost all color. Interesting. Very interesting. I looked at him. What is identity 1? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Then the woman on the live stream laughed. A genuine laugh. Like she was enjoying herself. I see she found the right question. The room froze. Nobody denied it. Nobody corrected it. Which meant identity 1 mattered a lot. Then suddenly, funeral broadcast glitched. The image distorted. Static flooded the screen. The woman in black frowned. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The live stream cut briefly. Then returned. Except now she wasn't alone. Another figure stood beside the coffin. The room stopped, breathing a man. Older, gray hair, expensive suit, confident posture. The moment Ethan saw him, he froze. Completely froze. The security officers looked horrified. I looked around. Nobody spoke. The newcomer smiled calmly, then looked directly at Ethan. Exploded. My pulse stopped. Son. I stared. Because there was only one problem. Ethan's father had been dead for 11 years. Public funeral, national coverage, verified death. Everyone knew that. Yet here he stood, alive, smiling, watching. The room descended into chaos. Several guards started talking at once. Ethan didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe. His father looked amused. Then his eyes shifted toward me. The smile faded. Recognition replaced it. Deep recognition, like he'd been searching for something or someone for a very long time. Then he nodded slowly. There you are. A chill ran down my spine. I had never met him, yet he sounded certain, certain enough to be dangerous. The live-stream audience exploded, millions of viewers witnessing a dead billionaire casually appearing at a funeral. Social media probably melted. Then Ethan's father said something that made the entire room go silent again. She's wearing the wrong identity. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. I looked at him. What does that mean? He smiled sadly, then pointed directly at me through the camera, delivered a sentence that shattered everything again. Because Lena Hart died before you were born. The room became completely silent. Not confused silence, not shocked silence, the kind of silence that happens when everyone already knows the answer. Except you, Juan. Every device in the penthouse received the same notification. Phones, tablets, computers, televisions, everything. A single classified file had been uploaded worldwide. The title appeared across every screen. Identity. Around me, somebody had just opened a secret that was never supposed to exist. Identity 1. You unsealed. The notification appeared everywhere. Phones, laps, televisions, security monitors. Even the digital refrigerator in the penthouse kitchen lit up with the same message. The room froze. Nobody rushed to open the file. That told me everything. People only hesitate when they're afraid of what they'll find. I looked around. Security officers stared at their screens. Ethan stared at his father. His father stared at me. Happy. I pointed at the notification. Open it. Silence. Open it. Still silence. Finally, I walked forward myself. The nearest analyst tried to stop me. I ignored him. The file opened. The first page appeared. No photographs, no classified stamps, no dramatic warnings, just one sentence. Identity 1 was never a person. The room became silent. I frowned. What? Several people visibly relaxed. That reaction caught my attention. Interesting. They expected something worse, much worse. I scrolled. The next page loaded. A blueprint, large, complicated, covered in notes. Names, dates, locations. The entire thing looked less like a personal file and more like a project plan. A massive project plan. The title sat at the top. Proud JCTCHO. My pulse accelerated. Another project. Wonderful. Exactly what this story needed. The live stream continued in the corner of the screen. Ethan's father watched calmly, like a man observing an experiment. Then I noticed something strange. The blueprint wasn't about one person. It connected hundreds, hundreds of identities, hundreds of names, hundreds of lives, all leading toward one symbol at the center. Identity 1. I looked closer. The center section contained no photograph, no fingerprint, no DNA profile, nothing. Just a sentence. The perfect cover. The room froze. I stared. What does that mean? Nobody answered. Then Ethan finally spoke. His voice sounded tired. Very tired. Identity 1 wasn't a person. He pointed toward the screen. It was a disappearance. The words hung in the air. I frowned. That made absolutely no sense. Unfortunately, everyone else looked like it made perfect sense. Then, another page loaded automatically. A list of names. Hundreds of names. Crossed out, replaced, changed, modified. The list continued for decades. I stared. Then my stomach dropped. One name appeared near the bottom. Lena Hart. Beside it sat another. Elena Reed. The two names were connected by an arrow. The room became silent. I looked at Ethan. His expression told me enough. Far too much. Then another arrow appeared. Elena Reed, connected to a third name, Maya Sterling, then a fourth, then a fifth. The screen continued scrolling. Identity after identity. Life after life. I stared. No. The live-stream woman smiled sadly. Exactly. Then she pointed toward the screen. Identity 1 wasn't a person. Silence. It was a system. The room froze. A system. The word changed everything, because suddenly all the photographs made sense. The passports, the birth certificates, the records, the missing years, everything, almost everything. I still had 1,000 questions. Then the live stream glitched. A new face appeared. Not Ethan's father, not the woman in black. Someone else. A young man, maybe 30, sharp eyes, calm expression. The room reacted instantly. Several guards swore. One analyst actually stood up. Interesting, this man mattered. A lot. The newcomer looked directly at the camera, then directly at me, and smiled. Hello, Lena. I crossed my arms. Apparently that's not my name. The man laughed. A real laugh. Not mocking. Almost impressed. Fair point. That caught me off guard. Most mysterious conspiracy people didn't appreciate sarcasm. This one did. Then his expression changed. I was getting very tired of people saying that. Then what's the right question? The man pointed toward the file. The right question isn't who you are. The room became silent. It's why everyone keeps changing the answer. My pulse accelerated, because for the first time that actually sounded important. Then another page of the file loaded. Financial records, properties, companies, trusts. The numbers looked absurd. Billions, tens of billions, then hundreds. The room froze again. I stared. What am I looking at? The man smiled. Ownership, heavily, very heavily. Then he pointed to one specific section. The owner names had been redacted. Every single one, except one. The room collectively stopped breathing, because the name displayed there was mine. Not Lena Hart, not Elena Reed, not any identity. Just me, the real me, or whatever passed for real at this point. I stared. No. The analyst nearest me looked pale, very pale. Then he whispered, "It's authentic." The room exploded. Phones rang. People started talking. Security teams moved. Even Ethan looked shocked. That caught my attention immediately. He hadn't expected this. Interesting. Very interesting. Then Ethan's father laughed. A calm, satisfied laugh, like a man watching a prediction come true. Finally. The room froze. I turned toward the screen. What finally? His smile widened. Ownership recognized her. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The sentence sounded insane. Ownership recognized her. As if ownership were alive. As if money had opinions. Then another alert appeared. A global alert. Every screen flashed red. Access confirmed. The room became silent. Then the number appeared. One account. One balance. I blinked. Then blinked again, because my brain refused to process it. The amount exceeded anything I'd ever seen. Anything anyone had ever seen. Several analysts immediately started arguing. One claimed the system was broken. Another claimed the decimal was wrong. A third looked ready to faint. I understood why. The amount wasn't merely large. It was impossible. Then the young man on the live stream stopped smiling. For the first time, he leaned closer. That's not supposed to happen. The room froze. Interesting. Very interesting. The mystery man hadn't expected it either. Then another alert appeared. A second one. Then a third. Different systems. Different countries. Different networks. All showing the same thing. Access confirmed. Access confirmed. Access confirmed. The room descended into chaos. Then the penthouse lights suddenly died. Complete darkness. People shouted. Security teams activated flashlights. Emergency power kicked in. Red lights flooded the room. Every screen went black. For several seconds. Nothing happened. Then one monitor slowly turned on, only one. The image quality was poor. Old grainy. Like security footage from decades ago. The room became silent. The video showed a hospital. A maternity ward. Doctors moving. Nurses rushing. Time team caught my attention. 27 years ago, the footage continued. A woman entered the room. The woman in black from the funeral. Younger. Much younger. Then Ethan's father appeared. Also younger. Then several other people entered. People I didn't recognize. The room remained silent. Nobody interrupted. Nobody breathed. Then a newborn baby appeared on screen. Wrapped in a blanket. Sleeping. The camera zoomed. The room collectively froze. Because pinned to the blanket was a tag. Not a name. Not a number. A title. Identity 1. I stared. The video continued. The adults argued. Shouted. Pointed. The audio didn't exist. only images. Then something strange happened. One of the people removed the tag. Slowly, deliberately, the label Identity 1 disappeared. A second tag replaced it. The camera zoomed again. Room became silent, painfully silent, because the new tag carried a name, my name, not Lena Hart, not Elena Reed, my actual name, the one almost nobody should have known. I felt my heartbeat stop. The mystery man on the live stream looked shocked. The woman in black looked shocked. Even Ethan's father stopped smiling. For the first time all night, nobody seemed prepared for what they were seeing. Then the video froze. One final frame. The baby's face, the name tag, the timestamp, and a handwritten note attached to the crib. 6 words. Do not let Tem find her. The screen went black. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then somewhere deep inside the building, a door alarm started screaming. The security chief looked at his tablet. His face instantly lost all color. I knew the expression by now. Something worse had happened. Much worse. He swallowed hard. Then whispered, "Someone just entered the vault." The room froze, because judging by everyone's reaction, whatever was inside that vault mattered more than the funeral. The identities, the dead billionaire, and every conspiracy I'd uncovered. So far. And somehow, I knew the person heading toward it wasn't looking for money. The security chief stared at the tablet. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The alarm continued screaming through the penthouse. Sharp, urgent, relentless. Someone had entered the vault. That single fact terrified everyone more than the funeral, more than the identities, more than Ethan's supposedly dead father casually appearing on a live stream. I immediately noticed something. The vault wasn't located in the penthouse. It wasn't even in Blackwood Tower. Security map flashing on the tablet showed a completely different location. Underground, remote, hidden. The kind of place people built when they didn't want governments asking questions. I pointed at the screen. "What's in the vault?" The security chief didn't answer. Instead, he looked toward Ethan, asking permission. Interesting. Very interesting. Ethan remained silent for several seconds. Then he said 3 words. "The original records." The room froze. I frowned. Records of what? Nobody answered. Of course. Then Ethan's father laughed from the live stream. A slow laugh. A knowing laugh. The records that should have been destroyed. The security chief immediately looked worse, which I didn't think was possible. Then another notification appeared. "Vault camera offline." The room erupted. Talking phones rang. Security teams moved. I stared at the message. Offline. Not destroyed. Not disabled. Offline. That meant someone knew exactly what they were doing. Then another alert appeared. 1 word. ACCSS. The room froze again. Opened. The security chief whispered a curse. The woman in black on the live stream closed her eyes. The young man looked genuinely alarmed. Even Ethan's father had stopped smiling. Interesting. The vault mattered. A lot. Then a file suddenly appeared on every screen. No password. No authorization. No encryption. Just open. Waiting. The title contained only 4 words. First Generation Archive. Nobody moved. Nobody touched anything. The file opened itself. Page 1 appeared. Photographs. Hundreds of them. Black and white. Old, very old. The pastry. Room became silent. Because every photograph showed the same woman. Not me. Not exactly. But close. Very close. Close enough to explain everything. I stared. The woman looked 20, maybe younger, standing beside politicians, scientists, military officers, business leaders. The photographs spanned decades. Impossible decades. The same face, the same appearance, year after year, without aging, without changing. The room froze. I looked at Ethan. "What am I seeing?" His answer came quietly. "The beginning? That wasn't reassuring." Then, another page, loaded. Medical reports, research logs, private correspondence. The dates stretched back farther, farther than they should, farther than logic allowed. The analysts began reading rapidly. One suddenly sat down. Hard, his face completely white. I noticed, immediately. "What?" The man looked up, his voice cracked. "This can't be real." "Wonderful." Those words never led anywhere pleasant. I walked closer. The analyst pointed at a specific document, a handwritten report. The signature at the bottom belonged to someone famous. Very famous. A scientist whose death had occurred almost 50 years ago. The report described the woman, not by name, not by identity, only by a title, the constant. The room became silent. The phrase felt important, dangerously important. Then another page loaded, and another, and another. Every report referred to the same person. The constant, always appearing, always disappearing, always returning, different names, different countries, different lives. Same face, the face every subject seemed to share. Then the young man on the live stream spoke softly. No, everyone looked at him. His expression had changed completely. Shock, real shock. What? The woman in black turned toward him. He pointed at the documents, then whispered, "They found the wrong archive." The room froze. My pulse accelerated. Wrong archive. There was more than one. Of course there was. At this point, I'd have been surprised if there weren't 20. Then another alert appeared. A new upload. The title was shorter. Much shorter. Only 2 words. Second archive. Nobody touched anything. The file opened automatically. Room exploded into chaos. Not because of what was inside. Because of who was inside. Photographs. Recent photographs. Modern photographs. Every subject. Every woman. Every identity. All cataloged. All tracked. All monitored. Because one photograph sat at the very center. Larger than the others. Highlighted. Prioritized. Protected. It wasn't subject 4. It wasn't the woman in black. It wasn't subject 0. It was me. My picture filled the screen. Beneath it sat a designation. Not identity 6, Lena Hart. Not any of the names I'd seen before. Just 2 words. N-O-K-E-Y. The room froze. Nobody spoke. Nobody breathed. Then Ethan moved. Fast. Faster than I'd ever seen him move. He crossed the room and shut the screen off. Too late. Everyone had already seen it. I stared at him. What is final key? His jaw tightened. No answer. The security chief looked away. The analysts looked away. Even the livestream participants looked uncomfortable. That was enough. Whatever final key meant, nobody wanted me knowing. Which meant it was probably the most important thing in the room. Then Ethan's father suddenly smiled. A slow smile. The kind that appears when a puzzle piece finally fits. There it is. The room froze. I turned toward the livestream. His eyes remained fixed on me. Not on the files. Not on the archive. Me then, he beaks, nodded, almost to himself. Now it makes sense. The woman in black looked alarmed. Don't, but he ignored her. Then he spoke. The archive wasn't protecting her. Silence. Absolute silence. He pointed directly toward my photograph. It was protecting everyone else. The room exploded. Several analysts started arguing immediately. The security chief swore. The young man stood up. No. Ethan's father smiled wider. Yes, my pulse accelerated. Because nobody was acting like he was crazy. They were acting like he might be right. And that was much worse. Then suddenly every light in the penthouse went out again. Darkness. Complete darkness. People shouted. Flashlights activated. Emergency systems struggled. For several seconds nothing happened. Then every screen lit up simultaneously. One image appeared. A security camera inside the vault. The room froze. Because the camera was somehow back online. The image showed rows of shelves, thousands of files, thousands of records, and one person standing among them, a woman. Dark coat, dark hair, familiar posture, breathing. She slowly turned toward the camera. And my blood turned cold. Because it wasn't subject 4. It wasn't subject 0. It wasn't the woman in black. It wasn't anyone we'd seen before. Yet, she still had my face. Another one, into the camera. Then, directly at us, as if she knew we were watching. Then she smiled, a calm smile, a dangerous smile, and held up a single folder. The label was clearly visible, Project Contract. Marriage. The room became completely silent. My pulse hammered. Marriage. The thing that started all of this. The thing that brought Ethan into my life. The thing that was supposed to be simple. Fake marriage. 90 days. $5 million. Nothing more. The woman opened the folder, looked inside, then laughed. A genuine laugh. Like someone who had finally found the answer. She raised her eyes toward the camera and said 6 words that instantly shattered everything again. Ethan wasn't supposed to marry you. The room froze, then she added one more sentence. And judging by Ethan's reaction, it was the most dangerous truth revealed so far. He was supposed to marry me.